Good afternoon. How are you? Well, it's according to Thomas Jefferson, it's warmer today. It's 34 degrees, and the humidity is 46%, and the winds are at 9. Although there's no evidence of that where I am, and I hope that continues to be the case. There are lots of important stories out there, themes that are being bent and twisted into a way, I think, to overcome the American public. Very dramatic shifts in the way we do things and what we say and how we do it. And I think that we've already seen some evidence of how this approach has prompted errors and mistakes and incompetent nominations and getting the law wrong, and that's not something to celebrate. A few moments yesterday, there was a meeting with the governor of California, who anticipated that Trump was going to turn it into, a media hit. And so he met him on the tarmac when Trump arrived and spoke to him directly. And they had a press conference that reminded us of how two people can talk like adults. Although it appears that when the governor was gone, Trump reverted to form and was talking about things he knew nothing about, and it turns out that weren't factually supported. But the one I want to focus on today is the American posse, if you will, posse comitatus. And you've all seen, shows when you're younger or as we've aged that say, let's get up a posse to get after those bad guys. And in periods of lawlessness, we're led to believe this is what happened in the Wild West, which could be pretty wild. But posse comitatus has grown into something else. And what it is now is that we don't want the government going after alleged misconduct within our borders. And why is that? One of the specific reasons is because when we were a colony and we look at those 13 stripes on the flag, one of the things we were concerned about was how soldiers would just take over a house and stay there. Quarter, they called it. And without the consent of the owner, whether or not it was in war. And when the Constitution was drafted in secret and it was made known to the colonies, they said, we have to have a Bill of Rights in there. And one of them was about quartering soldiers. And America, in formation, was very concerned about the fact that standing armies were not our friend. And we know about the Boston Massacre, our term, American term, and how John Adams actually represented the troops that were alleged to have been involved in that mess. And since that time, the only kind of force we recognized was militias. And that was also written into the Constitution, and I believe the Second Amendment was limited to militias. Militias over the years have been subsumed in the Department of the Army, and we don't really have militias, although we have self-designed ones in modern times, which are forms of protest against the government. But that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is posse comitatus, and it's intended to be thought of as civilians, not soldiers, compose the group that goes after lawlessness. Now, it is a core value, I think, that the military may not interfere in the affairs of a civilian government. And we have an act that says just that. It's called the Posse Comitatus Act. And it prohibits the willful use of the Army or Air Force. In fact, any armed service except the Coast Guard, I don't know why, but that's the way it is, to constitute a posse or to execute the laws. And if you violate this provision, you can be fined or prosecuted. Yet, we're told that our government has got armed troops amassing at our border, supposedly to support our immigration policy in ways not described. No one has told us what are they getting chairs for the people in immigration who are down there, for the judges? Are they making copies of documents? Are they posing as security officers? What are they doing? What does an armed force do? Now, it appears to me that what they're doing is impermissible under the Comitatus Act. But I have not heard, and forgive me if I haven't scanned far and wide enough, but I haven't heard anyone say that what they're doing there and what they're able to do. And we find that they plan to have, according to one report, a tank at the border. Is that support? What do you use a tank for? Is it menacing? Years ago, Holly and I were in Moscow, and just seeing tanks in the road waiting for a parade was pretty daunting. And also missiles were on long trucks on side streets. So that by itself is a show of force. Many years ago, I was in Paris when a similar demonstration was there. You may remember that Trump wanted to have such a demonstration here domestically. So he's already had the seed in his mind. He had the situation when he was upset with protesters at the White House. So today, the force vector is military in our nation pointed south. Now, what do we do when it changes its point of reference to the north or internally, having made this precedent? And how can we be so clumsy as to just sort of patiently hear something and then repeat it? They're there to support. Well, okay. So by extension, what does a soldier with a sidearm or a man with a truck or a tank do that is support? It's military support. And that we have to guard against, because we know where this can go and how it can go wrong. And as recently as the last, I think, 24 hours, Trump confirmed in an interview that he really does want and does intend, if it's at all possible, to acquire Greenland. And then he was asked about military force, and he said he had not ruled out military force. This is the man who said on day one he would be a dictator. This is a man who has first invoked the armed forces with connection with immigration. And this is a man who's talking about using it, force, at least he would consider it, in his efforts to secure Greenland. This is a very different America that he's talking about. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. But if we are passive and just say, oh, it's just support, what is that? And what it is not is reassuring. So that's what I have to say. And maybe tomorrow there won't be ice on the ground and I won't need cleats in my shoes, which is what I decided to wear today. So all the best. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.